Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I am really pleased to be here. It is my first speech at such types of conference. I'd like to build my speech in the general background of our conference. Once again, thank you for the invitation. I would try to make my speech relevant and in line with everything with what we are doing right now. Next slide, please. Just a bit of my background. I worked for the teams reacting to the cyber crimes in Ukraine, and after several years, I created my own company with the same profile, and our main focus is monitoring of threats to informational security, primary focus to our country, and basically the sectors of economy that we run. If you look at our activities listed here, you can see that the last point is development of local international cooperation on cyber security. It is really important because without cooperation, as I realized when I faced it for the first time 7 to 8 years ago, it is impossible because telecommunication providers, agencies or people responsible for these areas in our companies, they should cooperate, they must cooperate. Actually, part of our time and efforts were spent for development of such cooperation, and actually I'm glad with the result that we achieved, because more or less adequately we can respond to the threats that our company faces. But we do face such threats. If we remind the situation during the elections, when we had elections to the our parliament, when our multimedia companies were attacked, and we also recently, even telecom industry was suffered recently. I will tell you a bit in details later about that. So I'm going to talk about the computer incident responding companies, teams in Ukraine. We have the government center was established in 2009, and we have established a network of cooperation with our foreign companies and cooperators, because it's really very supportive to our company to adequately react to the threats. Currently, this movement is quite developed, and the organization was created in 1990s. It includes about 360 teams from over the 70 countries of the world, and some more countries are joining. I recently knew that Lightning joined this international organization, and they entered into agreement on increasing the awareness of cyber threats. This is the post on the first side, that you can get this information. We are not going about everything that is presented on this slide, but the landscape, the threat landscape, is quite diverse, and we can face them in many spheres, either for getting illegal information or just common cyber crimes, if they just try to get financial benefits, or just compromission of some quite important events for the country. So it's just the attacks that are the global policy and global policy focused. They are just try to unlock some or hack some government sites. Almost all sectors in Ukraine really suffered from these attacks, and black energy was the main the main institution that caused those attacks. Nobody knows who will be the first. We are not going to talk about all those things. I was thinking about what should be relevant to the community dealing with DNS and infrastructure issues. So I decided to disclose a number of cases that we faced and to demonstrate at which stages we would be more effective just due to development of cooperation with the domain names registrators. As far as I know, we have about 112 and 19 registrators in Ukraine, with also stop-level registrators, and probably to enhance our cooperation. When I worked in the center, we tried to increase made a lot of efforts to increase the awareness, both the public at large and the providers, to the problems that we have in Ukraine. For example, if the server is not adjusted correctly, but in some cases it was really beneficial. Just last October, we evidenced attacked the DIN company that provided DNS infrastructure to quite a big number of region and population, and the effect was really quite significant. The attack was DDoS attack, and it was its capacity was about 1 terabyte per second, and it was performed using the Internet of Things. Actually, about using the device that we have already talked about, and that are not properly adjusted and can be used for cyber attacks. We still have to deal with these issues. Not everybody understood the importance of these issues, but if we just look at the slogan that is offered at the slide, it is the slogan of Headmaster company, and also the companies who deal with similar problems in Ukraine. We know that we have to do a lot of things ahead. The investigation has been done. We have identified some persons involved in this crime, and it was quite successful. So we got some lessons from this attack as well. In this relation, I would like to tell that it is quite complicated to join together all the aspects. One of the aspect is mobile hard. I've already presented this information in Austria this year, and together with CyS-CERT and our company, we identified and blocked out for a while a certain botnet. It was engaged in spam sending, and the threat wasn't absolutely evident. The threat from the home router, which is not adjusted correctly. At a certain moment, we identified using and together with in cooperation with some other companies, the control servers of this botnet, we got access to them, monitored everything that we saw, and properly documented it. And it is quite difficult to do all those things within the legal framework and to disconnect to black out this thread. I would like to show you the panels of those blocks so that you could see the IP addresses, the email addresses to be inserted, and how everything was done. So actually, what you could see, it is quite a very good interface, and the negative effect was really significant. At a certain stage, those guys implemented the mechanism there is an ASBL listing, and they realized the APM delisting. If they saw the user in this list, they initiated delisting process. They could easily get them out from the list, and it was quite for them it was quite efficient. And there was also the module designed for traffic redirecting. So for default phishing sites, which were used to disseminate illegal content. The most complicated thing in that was documenting, or actually establishing cooperation with the people who could help us. It just was a technical slide. If I would like to be brief. Our task was to track the victim, then to find the owner of the service, document this crime, ask the user to apply to submit an application to the police, and then to disconnect him. It is quite easy to say. Another thing is to do that. So altogether, we identified about 30 IP addresses, or actually servers, and we disinfected that. We tried to cooperate with the owners of this service, but we didn't manage. Not everybody was wished to do that. We tried to communicate to them, to negotiate, but at certain time that people, the owners of the service, refused to cooperate with us. But at the same time, we cooperated with the providers, and one of them agreed to cooperate, and he was really interested because his own server was infected, and he agreed to cooperate. So we had a negotiation using Skype remote command execution. The administrator got commands through Skype, and we could document the process, because not everybody can understand how to do all these things step by step. So, and we then asked the provider to allow the service to operate for a while, to send spam, to disseminate spam, and a provider agreed because he wanted to get the ultimate result. So eventually we do all those things, but at the stage of when the suit was brought to for investigation, we had to explain the essence, the matter of the suit. So after the negotiations, eventually the service was disconnected. At a certain moment, the emailing with the server owner, we got from him he was a complaint to the provider. And the provider was ready to that, but usually provider don't like such types of emails. In this case, he said, "You see, we have just a crime suit brought about your service, so that's why we disconnected." And after that, the server owner didn't didn't try to be so strong in his position. Usually we should not be scared that the hosting net owner would brought the suit on you. If anybody of you faced such cases, please let me know. So, what was the most interesting? What was the cooperation? At the time, they used certain domain names, and and also IP addresses. We used the sync following procedure, which should be performed together with the DNS registrator. But we cooperated not with the Ukrainian registrators, but with the foreign ones. We succeeded in that, and it helped us to disinfect of all those servers that were infected with this harmful SOCT. This is one of the examples of cyber spying that we faced in our country just in spring, and it was on behalf of some ministry, and it was addressed to the users. Please open and understand. I will just this harmful email was disseminated through the emails, and then the software installed on the computer, and it was a danger to the computer. Usually, such software is used for online banking, and was using in all online banking application. But in this case, it were all the government authorities that were the focus of this cyber spying. So this type of email was received. We managed to identify the source of this email, and we found it because in some agencies, the server was adjusted in such a way that we could identify the proxy address, and we could call them and to explain them. It was quite a complicated task, both with the providers and the government authorities. It is really not so easy, because you have to explain them that it is their fault. So actually we identified the organization, the responsible person, and then we analyzed the logs of the proxy service of all this organization, and we identified the domain when the activity was done. But the domain was not registered at that time. We did that for them. We registered, we paid money, and it allowed us to identify other infected hosts. So eventually, we identified about 12 institutions where we disinfected easily this harmful software. In some other cases, the law enforcement authorities were involved in the process. So here we used the sync hauling procedure, because the domain was bought out for our purposes, and it helped us to understand to identify with the government authorities who were the object of attack. Another way of cooperation, and actually the case of cooperation with the domain companies, it is just a common phishing. All these types of pages are using Russian operator like Regru. This type of cooperation has been already established, but at a certain moment you cannot overcome it, because a great number of domains are registered. Such a very banal site includes a fake site for payments, and such type of script is used to get money from the users and to transfer that to the to the illegal accounts. So phishing, it's quite clear, understandable thing. With this, the data of the banking cards just accumulated on the site and then are used for illegal purposes. So actually, in such a way, such cooperation helps, and it should be, and if it is established properly, if not everybody wants to or tries to do just his own job, if we help each other, we could make our environment and our company more secure than we have it right now. So we have a lot of things to do, and more technical presentation was presented at USG conference, which was 1 week ago. I just tried to show you some cases where we had cooperation with the other institutions. Maybe it is not so evident, but it is really important, and it should be done. So I am giving the floor to the